So shifting gears a little bit, I want to actually talk about what the living conditions are that the incarcerated are living in these facilities. And so I think when people talk about prisons, what they conjure up in their mind is a picture like this, where they have, bars on cell doors, and there's one or two people living in these cells, and these are all throughout the state. But that's not actually how prisoners live. These type of arrangement here, and this actually looks very similar to it, is really only, to the best of my knowledge, still in place at the Florence Complex Central Unit. Like I said, Central Unit is 100 years old, and many of the cell blocks still have these type of bar situations that house single-man inmates. So definitely cell block 2, CB2, CB3, 4 all have those types of cells with the bars on it and one person living in there. However, that is not the case in many of the prisons, the rest of the prisons throughout the state. So as you can see here on the right are the single-man or single-person cells that I was just referencing from Central Unit. On the left is a two-person cell. This is from Perryville, the female unit. They have these cells there at Perryville. They have them at Tucson, Santa Rita. And a lot of your 4 yards will have two-person cells like this as well. 4 yards meaning a closed custody yard. And they may be juxtaposition beds like that, or they may be parallel to each other. Here are Quonset huts. You see those at a number of facilities. North Unit, a minimum unit facility, has several of these. 20 men live in them. The pictures I could find, this is exactly them from the unit. This is actually the one on the right was after a fire at Safford, I think is where this was. But you can see the condition that they're in. But yeah, they'll put 20 men in these Quonset huts right next to each other, right on top of each other in these drafty shells. Here you have tents. These are generally 10-person tents. The one on the left is actually, I believe, being used at Perryville, or maybe Hickman's Farms. I'm not sure exactly where they were using this one. But it's exactly the same as the one that the men's use. The one in the men's unit, this one on the right, that's actually North Unit at Florence Complex. That's what they look like inside, because they're all battered and beaten and full of holes. And you can see that legal boxes are up on the counter, because anytime it rains, it floods in there. And but in these small tents, they will have 10 people living in them, again, right on top of each other, in pretty squalid conditions. There's no bathrooms in them. There's one swamp cooler on one end and one space heater on the other corner. And they're freezing in the winter, and they are scorching in the summer. And you have to leave and walk to a trailer to go to the bathroom. And I will show you the restrooms for the North Unit trailer tent section here in a minute. So this is a picture that's very common on most of your medium custody units and some minimum level custody units. This is called a run, and they will have anywhere from 30 to 40 guys living in these rooms. You can see that there's single cubes up front, and they're double cubed in the back, and there's, tiny amount of space. And you got two guys literally, no pun intended, living on top of each other and sharing the space of a small closet. So this are all over the state at most of your minimum level units. I think this is South Unit here specifically. But yeah, you will. This is common at Lewis Complex. This is common. They're designed a little bit differently, but for the most part, they're pretty much cookie cutter like this. You see these at Lewis Complex. You see these at Iman Complex, Meadows and Cook units. You see them just all over the state on level 3 units. And then, of course, here you have the new wave of inmate housing, and that is the warehouses. So you have these warehouses in Kingman that house 200 men in one warehouse, 100 men on each side. That's the picture on the left. Actually came from Surbat unit, the minimum level custody at Kingman. The one on the right is actually from California, but it's a perfect example of what ours look like. I couldn't find any pictures of other Arizona ones in the warehouses, so that's what they look like though. And so these will house anywhere from 50 to 100 men. So they're all over. Tucson has a couple. Catalina unit and Whetstone have these big warehouses. Yuma has them, and definitely Kingman, and there's some around the rest of the state too. But these are pretty heinous living, and there's some other similar type living areas where it's kind of a cross between a large run and a 50-man run and a warehouse. Hachuka unit, which used to be called Wallapai, the level 3 unit at Kingman Complex is like that, where they'll have 55, I think, guys, and it's going to be a mix of single-man cubicles like the picture on the left and double bunks like on the right, and very cramped and, locked in. And so, as promised, here are the photos or images of the North Unit bathrooms. And you can see there we have a complete urinal that's missing, and the other urinals in disrepair. Those toilets probably aren't working. These sinks, everybody has to turn out for chow at the same time. So you can imagine that there's men lined up with these sinks shoulder to shoulder, using them, walking away without cleaning them. Cleaning crew comes in very infrequently. You can tell by the toilets that sanitation is rare, infrequent, and inconsistent altogether in these tents. And hundreds of guys have to use them daily.